you cannot even begin to say that those are the same, right? And that calories in versus calories out makes sense. Obviously, high in refined sugar, it leads to a rapid blood sugar spike because it's absorbed as liquid, right? And it's going to trigger you to be hungry very quickly after. Whereas chicken breast is rich in protein, provides sustained energy, supports building muscle, and it keeps you fuller longer.
Welcome to Health Decode, your number one source for real health information, with your hosts, Dr. Alessi and Matt Tack.
All right, welcome back to Health Decoded, where we unravel the complexities of health and wellness with science-backed insights. Today's episode is all about weight loss myths, the falsehoods that keep people stuck, and the strategies that actually work. I'm your host, Dr. Alfred Alessi, with my co-host.
The co-host, Matt Tack. After a week off, I'm glad to be back on, but
Yes,
we're going to
sir.
be highlighting the importance of cutting through misinformation to achieve real sustainable health and weight loss goals. So I'm excited to talk about that. And here's a quick teaser. Stay tuned as we address the myths and overcome strategies that you can start implementing today.
Good stuff, man. Looking forward to this episode, man. How's everything been with you, man? I know we had a week off with the podcast, but been busy in the clinic for sure.
Yeah, man, it's been busy. The life's been busy. I think it always, you always have to expect curveballs. And these are one of the ways that we're going to be talking about today, how you can still be proactive during that time when life throws you a curveball, how you can stay proactive about sustainable health.
I love that, man. I love that. And we've definitely been, kind of focusing towards in the clinic as well, like on the weight loss side of things. We've got Zeke piloting and really leading the Genesis protocol in the office and in the clinic and getting some amazing results. Patient of ours who came in, and I'll just use the name Scott. His name is Scott, and I'm sure he'd be okay with me saying that. He signed off, but he was down 30 pounds in a month, which is just awesome. I mean, insane results. So he's doing amazing and just kicking butt with it. So the kind of the big point here, man, is we want to first debunk some of the myths around weight loss and what people hear online and what we've kind of been, I think, programmed to think over time and just throughout our lives, which really just is not true. And then on the backside of that, share some action items for people and some real things that they can implement today to start pushing themselves towards a healthier weight and obviously a better state of health in general. So let's get right into it. Let's start with the myths. So the first one we're going to talk about is what I'm sure everybody has heard, that weight loss is all about calories in versus calories out, right? And this is just really an oversimplification and kind of ignores a lot of things. For one, the role of your hormones, metabolism, and the quality of food, right? About 100 calories of a McDonald's burger and 100 calories of grass-fed, grass-finished meat are very different as far as the nutrient profile and the amount of micronutrients and vitamins and minerals that come with that. So, the idea that weight loss is simply calories in, calories out is kind of been the dominant narrative for decades. While calorie balance is important, this oversimplification really ignores those key factors we just talked about. So, the first one being hormones. Your hormones play a significant role in how our bodies process and store calories. For example, insulin, which is known as the fat storage hormone, it regulates your blood sugar levels, promotes fat storage when it's elevated. And so diets high in refined carbohydrates and sugar, which lead to frequent insulin spikes, can result in insulin resistance over time. Now, this condition is obviously linked to weight gain, difficulty losing weight. The other hormones that are a little less known than insulin are leptin and ghrelin. These hormones control your hunger and satiety. So leptin basically tells your brain when you're full, where ghrelin is the hunger signaling hormone. So chronic overeating, poor sleep, these can disrupt the balance between leptin and ghrelin, which then lead to you constantly being hungry and overeating. And so it's basically a kind of a dangerous snowball effect with those hormones. And then the last one on this list that we have here is cortisol. So high stress levels elevate cortisol, which has been shown to increase fat accumulation, particularly around the abdomen. So these are all really external factors that have nothing to do with calories in, calories out. These are processes going on within the body that are very important. And so, it's really important to obviously take in mind what hormones are doing, but also that your metabolism is a factor as well. And your metabolism isn't static. It adjusts based on various factors, including muscle mass on your body, your age, and even the type of food that you eat. So for example, a high protein diet has what we call a thermic effect, meaning it requires more energy to digest compared to fats or carbs, which then can slightly boost your calorie expenditure. And so the food quality over quantity is very important. Not all calories are created equal. Obviously, we know that. So 200 calories of soda versus 200 calories of chicken breast. You cannot even begin to say that those are the same, right? And that calories in versus calories out makes sense. Soda is obviously high in refined sugar. It leads to a rapid blood sugar spike because it's absorbed as liquid, right? And it's going to trigger you to be hungry very quickly after. Whereas chicken breast is rich in protein, provides sustained energy, supports building muscle, and it keeps you fuller longer. So real quick, a study published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that diets high in processed foods lead to more overeating compared to whole food-based diets, even when the calorie intake was controlled in that study. So this basically proves the fact of what we're talking about right now. This highlights that food quality impacts both metabolism and appetite regulation.
Yeah, what's cool about that too, if we think about it in comparison, right? You're looking at things directly correlated to performance, right? And so when you bring all those factors in, right? Even if you were in a controllable scenario where you had two individuals, this is the thing, right? You can eat garbage and produce energy from that, like processed foods. Now, the utilization of that, like let's say I'm a high active driven person and I can burn through calories like crazy. It's because I run all the time. But then it becomes like how optimally efficient you are while you're burning those calories, right? And so if you're getting quality food, you're probably going to be progressing in maybe if long distance running is your thing or weightlifting, right? If you're taking in quality calories, your performance typically becomes a little bit higher. So you can be an active person. And there's a guy, DJ Metcalf, right? He's been a known guy in the NFL to eat candy and just garbage all the time. Yet you look at him and you're like, wow, man, he's a specimen. But the reality to that is there's going to be a demise to that. It hands down. His career, and I don't want to put this demise on him, but his career is going to be lightly shortened because he's not putting the quality in that creates the longevity component of that career, right? Whereas you look somebody else that has maybe, because I take, for instance, a storyline, and I take the NFL just because you take such a pounding, whereas a guy like Derrick Henry for the Ravens likely has, he's in his 30s now and is pushing towards like way longer than what a normal standard like running back can because he takes hit over hit. But the quality of nutrition and the performance that he gets on the training, it brings directly on the field and gives him longevity, right? So in a time and age like where you're young, yeah, you can battle through some things, but I want to bring it back home just for a second too, and just to like nurture the point of what it looks like, because this is a scenario directly in our family where my mother-in-law has stage 4 cancer, right? And she's never been one to really put like quality ingredients. Like she just loves snacks and various things. And so that habit structure has formed and she's never really created the discipline to put quality stuff in her body. So now at stage 4 cancer, we saw her like she's losing energy at more of a rapid pace than somebody putting quality foods in there with quality movement, right? Where they can really maintain that momentum even through disease, right? And so that's where I go back to what I said in the beginning of, life's going to throw you a curveball. It's not the reality of like, maybe you won't get cancer. It's like, but how efficiently can you battle through it? Right. And so these things come in play of the quality that you're putting into your body for the times that like a curveball might hit you.
Right. Yeah. And I know I know we have some really good examples and one that you wanted to share that with the audience, man.
Yeah. For tracking calories and hitting your like daily targets. One thing that we do is, we're specifically focusing on protein, right? Protein intake. And so that's one of the daily targets that I tend to not focus nearly as much as I am on my carbohydrate intake, even though I do. So I'm pretty regimented about like understanding when I'm going to be utilizing uh, a vast amount of carbohydrates, because you want to be very granular in the approach, right? Because if you're thinking in terms of longevity, you need to get movement and play, right? So resistance training is a big thing, but I need carbs during a resistance type exercise. So that's when you want to track those and you want to load up before you go into a resistance or a long distance endeavor. But protein is that structure that aids in both, right? It aids in resistance training while I'm actually training, and then it's post recovery. And so I would use really any app out there. We use Trainerize for us to actually track our calories, track, hey, where do we want to be? But really it's a threshold of where is your ideal weight target, and can I hit that on a daily basis in protein intake? And that's going to be ideally majority whole foods, and then supplementary with we're a big believer in just supplementing your protein, because it is a lot of like, if you're going to be eating chicken, which we are definitely carnivores, right? We push that. We think you get a lot of the micronutrients as well as the macronutrients when you do build a meat type red meat and blended with with like chicken in there too, in that structure for protein balance. So, but any app that you can physically track is really good for tracking your protein intake, and that's going to be paramount to your day-to-day activities. So you definitely want to get more lean based meats. So when you're going to the grocery store, these are all things that we always talk about of getting maybe a little bit leaner. Now, there are instances like if you want to get some healthy fats in there, an 80-20 into a red meat, I wouldn't say is the end of the world. If you get an organic grass-fed 80-20, it's still a solid way to get like really good protected fats in your diet. But if you can get a 90-10, like that's just going to be a little bit leaner meat where you're absorbing more of that protein.
Yep. Yep. That's great. And so just to summarize that myth, calories versus calories out is proven to not be true. And the quality of the food that you put in your body makes a dramatic impact on performance, longevity, and how your body's going to then manage its weight. And that honestly, good segue right into myth number 2. Carbs are not the enemy, right? Everyone thinks, oh, carbs are why I'm gaining weight. Carbs are good. And it just, again, it's a quality versus a quantity thing. So, the difference between refined carbohydrates like sugars and breads and pastas versus complex carbs and more starchy carbs that your body utilizes the fibrous component of. So, carbohydrates have really been demonized in many popular diets, which leads people to believe that avoiding them is the secret to weight loss. However, not all carbs are created equal, and eliminating them can result in nutrient deficiencies. So this can also lead to things like unsustainable eating habits and even negative health effects down the line. So real quickly, let me explain the difference between refined carbs and complex carbs for people who are unaware or unsure. So refined carbs, what we would consider like the unhealthy kind of carbs, these are highly processed and often stripped of fiber and nutrients. Examples would be like white bread, pastas, pastries, sugary cereals is a big one, sodas. These things are all quickly broken down into glucose, which causes a rapid rise in blood sugar, then followed by a rapid decline and crash. And so this cycle can lead to hunger, cravings, and then obviously overeating. So what we want to focus on is complex carbs. These are found in whole foods, unprocessed things like sweet potatoes, quinoa, legumes, and fruit, right? Complex carbs contain fiber, which will slow the digestion, stabilizing the blood sugar, and it keeps you feeling fuller longer. So they also provide essential nutrients like vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants that are going to support your overall health. For example, a study published in The Lancet Public Health in 2018 found that moderate carbohydrate consumption, particularly from whole food sources, was associated with the lowest risk of mortality, while diets extremely low or high in carbs increase the risk. So this underscores the importance of balance, not avoidance. So you don't want too many carbs, but you also don't want no carbs. It's definitely a balance. So, why would like demonizing carbs be problematic?
Yeah, it comes back down to the performance of longevity. So when we're talking about carbs in general, you hit the nail on the head. It's like, how efficiently are you breaking down those carbs? And then what is the utilization rate of what you're eating, right? Of the carbohydrate. And so typically in processed foods, which like a misnomer is you need to get like cereals in your kids in the morning, right? Which is like the worst thing that you want to give your kids in the morning. You want to give a high protein diet, so it's sustainable throughout the day. But from carbs in general, what I like doing is rice, right? A lot of rice. It's minimally broken down. Its utilization rate is a lot higher, and you can be more efficient when you use it in terms of how close you are in your proximity to an activity, right? Because I'm sure our demographic and who we're speaking to is people that want to get better, right? This is an educational podcast in terms of like how we're divulging and really decoding what health looks like. And so when we look at carbs, we always want to look at food as fuel and then the utilization of that fuel to make us live longer, feel better, right? It's all a feeling that's associated to that. And so you can make carbs taste good and utilize them at a higher level of efficiency. So one of the big ways, for me is to incorporate rice, but then, what are also other complex carbohydrates that you can get in that people are like, wait, that's a complex carbohydrate, is fruits and vegetables. So fruits and vegetables are your complex carbohydrate source. And what I like doing is staying really green and staying really berry, right? And so raspberries, blueberries, high in antioxidants. One little hack that I'll direct that I want to aid somebody in is whenever you buy berries from the grocery store, number one, organic is obviously always the best, but I always like putting vinegar, right? Wash them with vinegar because there's a lot of things, a lot of handling that's associated to it. There might be some few pesticides that are on it. So what I do is either put a red wine or a vinegar on actually my berries or my vegetables before I cook them or eat them. And then when you cook your vegetables at a low heat, set it at like a 3 or a 4, give it a little bit more time to actually cook because you don't want to cook all those micronutrients out of the vegetables that you're going to be eating, right? When you put them at high heat thresholds, you're losing some of those micronutrients that you can need, right? That you need for optimal performance. So, but some of the ones that I just love, I love artichokes. Not a lot of people love but Brussels sprouts are a great one to cook up and eat. So just giving you a couple of ideas of that side. Asparagus is another one, a great green complex carbohydrate that you can eat. So those are some of the things that you can add in as well as rice that then give you that energy and that performance for the utilization in activity. So a couple things that I want to hit on here, why demonizing carbs is problematic. So unsustainable diets, cutting out an entire macronutrient can lead to restrictive eating patterns and feelings of deprivation. This often results in that yo-yo dieting where people lose weight temporarily, but regain it when they introduce carbs. And then what are the negative health effects associated to this, right? So low carb diets can lead to lack of essential like fiber, nutrients like fiber. So, which is critical for gut health and digestion. One thing you want to note on that is the reason why gut health and digestion are so imperative is because of the enzymes that are located with the stomach, right? You want to make sure that it's naturally getting through your large and small intestine to your gut so that you're absorbing those macro and micronutrients into your bloodstream. So inadequate fiber intake has been linked to constipation. A lot of people have constipation, poor gut microbiome and diversity, which is I just aforementioned, right? And increased chronic diseases like heart disease and type 2 diabetes. Now we get to energy and performance, which is something I spoke of, right? And how the utilization of carbs. So carbs are the body's preferred source of energy. That's why we need these, right? Especially for physical activity. without sufficient carbs, people may experience fatigue, brain fog, reduced athletic performance. And that's what we're about, right? Maintaining that forever athlete. And a journey, to note, a journal of the International Society of Sports Nutrition in 2018 studied high low carb diets, right? How low carb diets can negatively impact endurance and strength training outcomes. So that's one thing just to note, that if you're looking to perform with a high level of efficiency, whether it be in resistance training, whether it be at the gym, CrossFit, whatever you may do, to maintain that level of activity, carbs are essential for that. Uh, an actionable tip is focus on whole foods sources like sweet potatoes, quinoa, fruits, something that is incorporated in your day to day. And that starts with breakfast, lunch, and dinner, right? One of the misnomers that we have is that our breakfast needs to be associated to just carbohydrates. Maybe it's a piece of bread with some butter on it or things like that, where in reality, you want to make sure that you're incorporating maybe some nuts and fruits and vegetables and a yogurt in that, to incorporate that, to make that sustainable throughout the day. So making sure that you're focused on getting solid quality sources of carbohydrates, and incorporating them almost into every major meal group that you're going to be eating throughout the day.
Yeah.
But
And
we've seen this play out with so many different clients that, hey, I just want to go on this one type. Yeah, it could be good for a season, but the reality is like, what is sustainable for the long term?
yeah, low carb tends to not be very sustainable. And the whole like breakfast cereal thing was very much like breakfast is the most important meal of the day, was to sell cereal. That's I think essentially what it was. And it created very much a an issue with like diabetes and obesity in this country. So, choosing nutrient dense carbs, you're going to fuel your body better, maintain energy rather than spike up and down, and enjoying, a balanced diet. Cutting out carbs are good, man. Everybody likes carbs. So, just doing it the right way, obviously. So that brings us to, let's talk about myth number 3 here. The myth is that you can out exercise a poor diet. So, exercise is obviously vital. Moving your body, lifting weights, like we preach that like no other, but it's not the end all be all if you're fueling your body with trash, right? And so this is definitely one of the most common misconceptions in fitness and weight loss, the idea that you can just eat whatever you want as long as you work out hard enough. It sounds good, right? Sounds appealing, but it just doesn't hold up. And that's kind of that DK Metcalf example you talked about. So, while exercise is essential, it can't be compensated by a poor diet when it comes to sustainability. And that's what we're all about, is longevity and sustainability. So real quick, let's break this down a little bit. Exercise contributes to weight loss, but its effects are often overestimated. So this is very interesting. According to the Journal of Sports Medicine and Physical Fitness in 2020, physical activity alone accounts for only about 10 to 30% of the calories your body burns daily, with the majority coming from your basal metabolic rate and thermic effect of food. So, I mean, this is imperative, right? That's only 10 to 30% comes from your exercise, then the rest has to be on point. So exercise does play a critical role in improving your cardiovascular, building and preserving muscle, which can boost metabolism, enhancing mood and reducing stress, which obviously supports a healthier food choices, as well as reducing the risk of chronic disease like diabetes, heart disease, and osteoporosis. But here's the catch. If your diet consists of excessive calories, processed foods, and poor macronutrient balance, no amount of exercise can counteract the resulting weight gain or health issues. And so, why relying on exercise alone is a mistake is really the caloric burn versus intake imbalance, right? Kind of what we just touched on. So exercise burns calories, but not as nearly as many as people may think. For instance, a 30-minute high-intensity workout might burn 300, 400 calories. Meanwhile, a single fast food meal can easily exceed about 1,000 calories. So this creates a mismatch where people overeat, believing the workouts just earned them, right? How many times have you heard that? I just earned this donut, right? These indulgent foods. So that's where nutrient quality really matters. Weight loss isn't just about calorie balance, but it's about the quality of those calories. So the diets high in refined sugar and processed foods can disrupt the hormones like insulin and leptin, leading to increased fat storage and then cravings. The poor diet also limits your body's ability to recover and perform optimally during exercise. So if you're eating these high processed sugary foods, but then you're thinking your workout's going to earn you those foods, you're not going to recover well. And eventually you're going to start breaking down your body. Your body's not going to heal. So stress also plays a role. So overeating while underfueling can increase stress hormones like cortisol, which promotes fat storage, particularly around the abdomen. And so this was from a Journal of Obesity in 2019. Chronic stress from poor nutrition and excessive exercise can derail weight loss almost entirely. So that's where that balance is just, I mean, it's essential for you to be over exercising, because eventually you get to a point where you have to exercise more, you have to exercise more, you have to exercise more, eat less, eat less, eat less. That's not sustainable at all. So balance is important, and quality does matter.
Yeah, there was just to give an example of a client that we worked with, which I won't say any names, but one of the things as far as dialing in, he thought he could outwork his nutrition. And the reality is it was holding on, right? He just wasn't able to burn. And there's a number of different things that go into that, but the main thing was that he wasn't putting quality nutrition in his body to get optimal performance at the gym. So we go back to that analogy that I aforementioned, was just getting the quality ingredients so you can have optimal performance, so that you can reduce the amount of, really, we go back to the BMR, which is your basal metabolic rate. So breaking that down just in a very easy way to understand, your basal metabolic rate is just like your caloric peak, right? That you need to understand that I can't overeat this on a given day, because the reality of where I'm at and my activity levels will then increase, that weight gain will go up, right? Anytime I hit my ceiling and I eat above that, right? That's when you're inflaming yourself, and you're packing on that additional weight. So when you're incorporating these energy drinks, which a lot of people drink their calories and they don't even realize it, right? They drink majority of their calories throughout the day because they're like, I don't like water, I want a soda, I want an energy drink, or I want these other things. Well, those things add up, right? And there's plenty of things in there that are going to be a constraint against your performance. And so we just have had a client that was like, hey, I just want to eat the way I want to eat. And then, hopefully, you guys can guide me to outworking it, when in reality, you need both. So you need to be making those decisions on a daily basis that, hey, I am going to eat optimally so that I can get that performance in the gym or in my workouts or whatever, however you choose to work out. That's how that needs to really play out. But when you're constantly bringing in sugary drinks, you might add in a fast food, where you don't even know how many calories it is, but it's likely between 2,000 to 3,000 calories in one sitting, right? Because this is also just a side note that I want people to understand, is that there's a 30% threshold in actually all of food criteria. So even when you go to McDonald's, when you go to the stores, they have a delta that is a 30% over under on all of their claimed calories, right? And so when you choose to go to a McDonald's or a Burger King, it might say it's 1,200 calories, but in reality, especially later in the day when maybe some fats have soaked up on that burger because it's on that grill, right? You're adding in 400 to 500 to 600 more calories because there's so much fat that was involved in that piece of meat. Then that puts you way over that target. So setting your BMR, which is a simple calculator, you can actually go to Google and you can look, hey, what's my daily activity levels? How tall am I? How much do I currently weigh? And it'll actually set your BMR for you, where you can kind of have an understanding, okay, well, if I increase my activity levels and I know this is my BMR, that then I'll be at a caloric deficit. And if I'm putting healthier ingredients into my body, leveling out my pH levels with maybe a little bit more better water throughout the day, well, then I will see that reduction in weight. So those are just some helpful tips that you can look at things with more of a myopic viewpoint of how it can, number one, help me, but how those things really do hurt me a lot of times when I make those decisions.
Nice. Yeah. And so, by pairing the nutritious diet with regular intentional exercise, you're going to create this synergy that not only supports weight loss, but is going to improve your overall health and well-being long term. Now, real quick, we want to pause and take a word from one of our sponsors. This episode of Health Decoded is brought to you by Authentic Nutrition, the brand redefining what it means to fuel your body the right way. At Authentic Nutrition, they believe that what you put into your body matters. That's why every single product is crafted with clean, premium ingredients and dosed with maximum efficacy to ensure you're not just meeting your health goals, you're exceeding them. No fillers, no shortcuts, no gimmicks. Whether it's their advanced supplements for energy, recovery, or gut health, you can trust that what's on the label is exactly what's in the bottle. Authentic Nutrition delivers science-backed formulations that work as hard as you do. If you're tired of products that promise the world but don't deliver, it's time to make the switch to Authentic Nutrition. Elevate your health with transparency, quality, and results you can feel. Check them out today at authenticnutrition.com and use promo code Alessi15 to get 15% off. That's THENTIC nutrition.com, promo code ALESSI15 to save 15% and take the first step toward real, lasting health. Authentic Nutrition, fuel your best self. Now back to the episode. All right, welcome back to the show. So now that we've discussed these myths and we've really kind of like got these out there for people to kind of understand and have a little bit more of an idea of the truth around, how weight loss works in the body, let's get into some like nuts and bolts, right? Let's get some action items and some strategies. So these strategies we're going to share with you, they're based on science. These are real and this is effective. And this is how we operate and how we've gotten a lot of people to get amazing results, not only to lose weight, but to maintain that for long term and for life. So, number one, focusing on nutrient density. I know we've already talked about this multiple times, but let's get a little bit more detail. So when it comes to weight loss and overall health, calories are not created equal, as we've discussed. The foods with the high nutrient density provide essential vitamins, minerals, and other beneficial compounds per calorie, right? So fueling your body while keeping you satisfied. Some examples are leafy greens, lean proteins, as we discussed, and then healthy fats like avocado and olive oil. Nutrient density and satiety is important. So according to research published in Nutrients 2019, this is a journal, Nutrients, nutrient-dense foods help to regulate hunger hormones like ghrelin and leptin, reducing the likelihood of overeating. For example, a salad packed with spinach, chicken, and avocado is far more satiating than a slice of pizza, even if they contain the similar amount of calories. And so that's that quality over quantity. So how do we balance, right? Balancing your macronutrients. So a diet that balances proteins, fats, and complex carbs, as opposed to those highly refined sugars, is going to prevent those high spikes and crashes in blood sugar, which lead to you feeling hungry and craving and overeating. Studies in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition show that diets rich in protein, which is what we preach, can enhance satiety and boost your BMR, or basal metabolic rate, while complex carbs like quinoa and sweet potatoes provide steady energy to support that. So here's an actionable tip. Build your meals with a balance of macronutrients. For the average person who's relatively active and wants to support weight loss, going at about like a 40% carb, obviously preferably those complex carbohydrates, 30% or more protein, and then 30% of healthy fats. So this approach is going to stabilize your blood sugar and keep your energy levels consistent over time.
Yeah, and then one of the big key factors beyond that, right, is managing hormonal health. That's one of the big things that we'll talk about, and we'll direct you in ways from whether you're a man or a woman, how important really understanding your hormonal health is as you age. It's one of the most primary things that you can understand because they definitely have a lot of precursors to how you're going to evolve in your 40s, 50s, and even 60s, right? So weight loss isn't about just eating less. It's really not, right? So it's about how foods impact your hormones. Insulin, cortisol, and leptin are three key hormones that play significant roles. Insulin, as I'm going to explain it to you here, is this hormone regulates blood sugar levels and fat storage. So diets high in refined carbs and sugar can lead to insulin resistance, a condition where cells don't respond effectively to insulin, causing weight gain. The Journal of Endocrinology highlights how low glycemic diets reduce insulin spikes and fat metabolism. Now, as we go on to cortisol, to give you a little bit more information on how cortisol works, and this is our body's stress hormone. So cortisol promotes fat storage, especially in the abdomen area. That's where a lot of we focus on this specifically, as far as it's not all, it is cool to have a six pack, but there's a reason for a six pack. There's a reason why you build those core muscle groups, from your back to your front. So when levels are chronically elevated, stress from poor diet, lack of sleep, or overtraining exacerbates this. So just think of that and how important core health is. This is something I just actually talked about in a prior podcast that I was on. Leptin, this hormone signals satiety to the brain. So overeating or consuming a high-fat, high-sugar diet can lead to leptin resistance, making it harder to recognize when you're full. I see this in kids all the time, is that, Daddy, I'm not hungry yet. Well, have you allowed yourself to get hungry, right? And so there's this cognitive association that we need to bring back home as far as allowing our body's leptin response to, hey, am I truly satiated? And here's an actionable tip, right? Avoid spikes in sugar by pairing protein. We focus on protein a lot. And one of the big ways that you can do this, there's really cool additives where you can put protein in your water, right? There's actually Protein 2.0 water out now that is really good and it has quality ingredients into it. It's something that you can pick up at Aldi or online. There's also another way where you can put protein powders in. You know, I use a hydrolyzed type protein. It's better for the gut, that can break down. We talked about this quite a bit in prior podcasts, but by pairing protein, fat, and fiber with every meal, for example, combining avocado, eggs, and sauteed greens for breakfast, right?
Right.
So that's something that we said as far as tips on how you can incorporate more satiating type meals even earlier in the day. We don't have to think breakfast as like a piece of bread or some sugary drink or sugary coffee is what a lot of people go to, but really getting something satiating that provides different elements of that protein, that fiber, and those healthy fats that can be sustainable throughout the rest of the day.
Yeah, and real quick before you get into the next one, that's what I was drinking here. Was my coffee had a collagen bone broth protein powder in it, so it was about 20 grams of protein in my coffee, but it dissolved in there and it was like a vanilla creamer essentially. Coffee tasted delicious, but I just got 20 grams of protein. So simple things like that, man.
Simple hacks that you can incorporate in. That's a great way. So what's the company that actually makes that?
That one's Paleo Valley. They have a pretty good product. I like
Paleo Valley.
Yeah.
So we're going to be sourcing a lot of ingredients. That's what we love doing, is actually sourcing a lot of stuff that we believe in, that we've actually utilized ourselves, right? And if we don't like it, we don't recommend it. But if we do, we'll recommend it.
And you can always go to alessifunctionalhealth.com. And if you click on our resources tab, we have a ton of resources there. You can click on our partners and see some of the brands that we recommend. Another one that's really cool is called Meal Boosters. And they basically created these cool protein powders that are collagen protein based. One is a collagen for your coffee. One is a collagen, like cheesy flavored protein you can throw into some ground beef or eggs, and it gives it obviously enhanced flavor, but if you're boosting the protein profile of that meal as well. So that's a really good hack to obviously focus on balancing blood sugar and not causing those dramatic spikes as well. So
yeah, for sure. And one thing that is obviously close to our heart and something that we do every single day, but build muscle to boost the metabolism. We believe that, muscles, that's your biggest organ, right? That's going to produce that longevity effect. And so how are you efficiently producing more muscle mass as you age and as you progress. So the role of strength training in increasing muscle mass and your resting metabolic rate, the strength training isn't just for athletes. That's been a misnomer. A lot of people just want to hop on the treadmill or do something, but resistance training is actually that component that is probably going to do 10 times what walking on a treadmill can for an hour. So that's not the most efficient way to burn calories. It's one of the most effective ways to support long-term weight loss. And muscle tissue burns more calories than fat, even at rest, meaning the more muscle you have, the higher your resting metabolic rate will be. So that's an RMR, so your resting metabolic rate. And that means when you're post-exercise, your body's going to continually burn calories, right? Whereas if you're in a static state and you're not walking anymore, there's no sort of resistance training where you're on a treadmill for an hour, it's not going to burn as high a rate, because what you're doing is you're actually targeting more muscle loss than you are maximum muscle gain. So you want to make sure that you're going through proper RMR when you're utilizing resistance type training. So we've applied some of these things, but I want to notate that a study in the Journal of Applied Physiology found that every pound of muscle gained, right? Get this, your body burns an additional 6 to 10 calories per day at rest. When you're sitting on the couch, you're still burning, right? So you want to make note of that. While this may seem small, it adds up over time. That's the compounding effect of you do this every day, your body's going to continually burn, right? It's going to burn calories, and it's going to be a burn associated to fat, right? It's not going to be burned muscle because you're getting that protein in your diet, and it's then going to be burning the unwanted calories that are retained. So that's what it targets first. Your body's always going to be targeting the fats and the carbohydrates first before it then gets the proteins, which then inhibit the growth in your muscular structure. So you want to make note of that, right? And one thing that we recommend, if you can do more, by all means, but resistance training 2 to 3 times a week. So you want to do some level of resistance training 2 to 3 times a week. And when we say resistance training, it's where your body's working against itself, right? It can be pushing and pulling. It doesn't have to go in there where you're picking up dumbbells, slamming them down. I love doing that, right? That's what I love doing. I love picking up heavy weights and putting them down. But the reality is there's a lot of resistance bands, right? Stuff that you can do throughout the day. Functional kettlebell workouts that you can incorporate in from a resistance component that has the exact same effects. So you just want to make sure it's a heavier weight working against you when you're pushing and pulling. That's the resistance training that's incorporated in. So focusing on that 2 to 3 times a week, compounding over time, over a complete year, you will see rapid results.
Yeah, that's right. And stuff you can do at home. Get some bands and kettlebells. You did that for a long time when your kids were young. You know, the kids can't be an excuse, right? So you basically incorporated the kettlebells and the bands at home, and you still got amazing results and maintained muscle. So the next big thing we got to talk about is sleep and stress, man. This can wreak havoc on somebody's metabolism. So, sleep and stress are often overlooked in weight management, but they're critical for regulating your hormones and your metabolism. According to the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism, sleep deprivation disrupts your hormones like ghrelin, which then increases hunger, and leptin, which obviously is supposed to signal fullness. So chronic sleep loss can lead to increased appetite and a preference for calorie-dense, high-sugar foods. So you ever wonder why you're burning it at both ends and all you want is donuts and, junk food? Is that study proved it. So and along with stress and cortisol, prolonged stress elevates cortisol. So that high cortisol all the time is going to promote your body to store fat, because your body's very smart and it thinks I need energy when I'm stressed. So it's going to store fat, especially around the abdominal area. And this is because cortisol increases your cravings for those energy dense foods as a part of the fight or flight response, right? So really important for focusing on the brain health as well. Chronic stress and poor sleep will impair the brain's prefrontal cortex, making it harder to make those disciplined food choices and stick to healthy habits. So again, it's all related to how these things can then snowball effect over time. Next thing you know, you're 40 pounds overweight and you're miserable and tired. And it's because your body was just doing what it's supposed to do, but it got led down this path, right? So easy actionable tip is aiming for 7 to 9 hours of quality sleep per night. And quality is again more important than quantity. If you're more on that 7 hour range, but you're getting a lot of deep sleep and restorative sleep, your body's going to repair and your body's going to be better set up for the next day. So establishing a bedtime routine that includes shutting off the screens an hour before bed. And then using some type of like a relaxation or meditation practice before bed as well, doing things like deep breathing, box breathing, diaphragmatic breathing, meditation. I always recommend the app called Happy. It's Happier, I believe. It's a guided meditation app that they have specific bedtime meditations for you to help you get into that sleepy state. So huge. Stress and sleep are huge, man.
So massive. That's the correlator to pretty much everything of how you're going to be making decisions throughout the day. So getting quality sleep is going to be exacerbate everything, right? In terms of like a positive effect or a negative effect if you don't get enough of it. So it's also how you treat people, right? If you get better sleep, it exacerbates on both ends of the spectrum. And one thing we just want to know as we encompass and kind of take away all these things is consistency over perfection. One of the things that I've kind of aligned with as far as I got to be perfect at this. I got to be perfect. And we live in this like social world where, dang, like we got to be perfect, right? We realize we're not perfect. We're not even perfect doing this podcast, right? We just want to do good and put out the best information possible and get a little bit better every day. And so that's the compounding and the consistency of time is when we want to go in with an all or nothing, right? And this is why we're actually explaining this in January, is because people are like gung-ho, maybe right now they've got through 3 weeks in, but this is really the determiner whether what's going to set the tone for the rest of the year is if you could push through this next week, 2 weeks and maintain that level of consistency, because this is the culmination point of the 1% rule. What James Clear says is how am I just like putting in that 1% every day, right? And that 1% is that day, right? It's not a measure of yesterday. And so that's what people forget about. It's like, did I put that 1% in today? And so, cause like yesterday's the past, tomorrow's the future. What's right now? And so when he applies this, and it's something that I even missed in his book, is like, did I put in that 1% effort today? And that's that level of consistency, because consistency is what compounds over time. It's just like the stock market, putting your money in the stock market. It's like that consistency of investing into yourself compounds over time. So you just want to make a rule for that it's not this all or nothing mentality of if I miss out today, then I can't do tomorrow. No, you can do tomorrow, because then that's the progress of consistency. So it's setting that baseline of, how you're going to operate on a daily basis. Can I get that efficient sleep? Can I make more quality decisions when I'm at the grocery store and getting more whole foods into the shopping cart so that I can bring home and cook them a little bit better, right? Can I dedicate 20 minutes a day, maybe even an hour a day? Like, if you can get a community of people that come along with you, I think that's another big component is getting community. Dr. Alessi and myself, we always are exchanging ideas to improve the quality of our health. Like, do you have that comrade that can boost you up, that can be like, hey, let's keep going. Let's get a little bit better every day. And then measuring it on that day, right? And we have that scorecard built out, which I love, and really just evaluating our pillars in our life. So we set our pillars in our life, and it's mind, spirit, work, fuel, movement, sleep. And so we measure those. And so, hey, where are we at? And so I'll come to him. Hey, where you at in this area? Or where? And it's constantly an open dialogue of, are we improving within our pillars that allow us to grow every day with an act of consistency?
Yeah, man. And so I think, kind of playing off of the consistency thing is like, if it's a quick fix, if someone's pitching you a quick fix or selling you something, it's probably not the best thing to do, because quick fixes, they don't last, right? So it's all about that sustainability. What is something you can incorporate that you can do forever? Because then you're going to just obviously be able to maintain that longevity. So, to summarize kind of everything we just talked about, focusing on nutrient dense foods, managing hormones, building muscle, prioritizing quality sleep, and staying consistent, you're going to create a sustainable foundation for long-term weight management and health. And so these strategies go beyond the quick fix, and they set you up for that lifetime of wellness. And these are things you can incorporate and share with family, friends, and obviously your community. So, some takeaways. Don't fall for the myths that we talked about. Focus on sustainability, the science-backed strategies, right? Things like prioritizing the nutrient-dense foods, muscle-building exercises, and hormonal health. Consistency and patience are the key to the lasting results.
And as always, if you're enjoying what we're kicking out here, we dedicate some time editing. Please smash that subscribe button. That helps us when you subscribe and let somebody know about it. If they need some of this information in their lives, let them know what we're going on. That helps us grow this podcast, get our word out, and just actually just bring better content to you. So make sure you hit that subscribe button. If you can leave us a review, leave us a review. But as always, we just appreciate you. We appreciate you listening in, and be better today.
Yep. And so next week, we're going to be diving into gut health. We're going to be sharing some practical tips for better digestion and overall well-being. We want you to check us out. Go to alessifunctionalhealth.com, head over to the resources tab, sign up for the newsletter. That way you can stay in the know of what episodes are coming and what kind of content we're going to be pushing out, and then stay involved with our community as well. We do all kinds of events and specials and really cool things with the clinic. And so thank you again for tuning into Health Decoded, Dr. Alessi and Matt. As always, stay curious, stay empowered, and remember, your health is in your hands.
Thank you for tuning in to Health Decoded, where we break down the truth about all things health and empower you to take charge of your well-being. If you found value in today's episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who needs to hear this. For more resources and personalized support, visit us at alessifunctionalhealth.com and sign up for our newsletter. To hear your questions answered live on the show, send them to ask@alessifxhealth.com. That's ask@alessifxhealth.com. Until next time, stay curious, stay empowered, and remember, your health is in your hands.